payoff. And so this week they wore T-shirts saying, making a statement, you better pay us. But instead of just leaving it at that, Kelsey Plum for LA had to take a dig at Caitlin Clark.
In the cutthroat arena of professional sports, where legacies are built and fortunes are made, sometimes the most devastating blows aren't delivered on the court. They're whispered into a microphone, posted on social media, and detonated in the court of public opinion. This is the story of how a single moment of professional jealousy from a WNBA veteran spiraled into a public relations nightmare. It's a story of a calculated attack that backfired with spectacular force. Kelsey Plum thought she could throw shade at the league's new queen, Caitlin Clark, and walk away unscathed. But she fatally underestimated her target and was met with a serving of karma so swift, so precise, and so humiliating it will be remembered for years to come. This is how a rising star taught a veteran a brutal lesson in the new rules of fame.
Are really, really good. So the T-shirts don't bother me. But why do you take a shot at the golden goose, Caitlin Clark? You guys were flying before she arrived on one of those airlines that made you pay for a cup of water. One of those airlines that is the planes are the color of a highlighter.
The powder keg was sitting in plain sight long before the fuse was lit. The setting was the WNBA All-Star Weekend in Indianapolis, an event that felt less like a celebration of the league and more like a coronation for its new savior, Caitlin Clark. Despite being injured and unable to play, her gravity was undeniable. She was the golden goose, the once-in-a-generation phenomenon who had single-handedly dragged the league into the mainstream spotlight. We're talking about viewership numbers skyrocketing by triple-digit percentages, arenas selling out in minutes, and merchandise flying off the shelves. For the first time in its history, the WNBA was a hot ticket, and it was all because of her. The league was finally on the verge of turning a profit, of securing lucrative charter flights, of becoming what it had always dreamed of being. But this golden age came with a dark undercurrent. For some veteran players who had ground it out for years in near-empty arenas for modest paychecks, Clark's meteoric rise felt like an invalidation of their own hard work. The sentiment...
That was a very powerful moment. We didn't, at least as players, we didn't know that that was going to happen. So I think it was kind of like a genuine surprise. But the T-shirt, just united front, was determined this morning that we had a meeting for. And, not to tattletale, but 0 members of Team Clark were very present for that. But no, we were just... We had a very...
that really needed to be mentioned.
I'm trying to make a situation light, okay? But yeah, no, I think it was just all of us getting on the same page for the game. And we wanted to do something that was just united and collective. And I thought that it was a very powerful moment and got the point across. And, sometimes you don't have to say anything.
The first public shot was fired under the guise of unity. In a planned move, the players took the court for the All-Star event wearing identical black T-shirts with a stark 4-word demand: pay us what you owe us. On the surface, it was a powerful image of solidarity. These athletes were fighting for better pay, a bigger share of the revenue they helped generate. But the statement was drenched in a shocking and uncomfortable irony. The truth is, the WNBA has been a financial sinkhole for its entire existence. For 27 consecutive years, the league had lost money. It had never, not once, turned a profit. Its survival was entirely dependent on massive annual subsidies from its big brother, the NBA. So this demand to be paid what they were owed was a bold, if not delusional...
Kelsey Plum was the leading all-time scorer in women's college basketball until Caitlin Clark passed her up her final season at Iowa. So there's that, right? But I think we all understand that there's plenty of jealousy for Caitlin Clark around the WNBA, her spotlight, the endorsements she gets, and her fame. But Kelsey Plum, I could imagine her feeling a type of way because she really had a very similar college career with none of that spotlight, none of that fame.
The post-game press conference was the scene of the crime. The atmosphere was standard, with players fielding questions about the game and the weekend's events. Then, Kelsey Plum, a respected veteran and former college phenom whose scoring record Clark had just demolished, sat down at the microphone. When asked about the t-shirt protest, she began with the expected talk of unity and sending a collective message. But then, a subtle shift. A slight smirk played on her lips as she leaned into the mic and delivered the fatal blow. She casually, almost flippantly, added that when the players had their united meeting to plan the protest, 0 members of Team Clark were very present. The air was sucked out of the room. This was no slip of...
I think what she was trying to do there was make sure that Caitlyn didn't get credit for the shirts, not realizing the backfire on the shirts, that she didn't want to be associated. It was on purpose. But at the same time, kind of showing her hand in her cattiness towards Caitlyn. So it just completely backfired on Kelsey Plum and Sabrina.
The camera immediately panned to fellow star Sabrina Ionescu sitting right next to Plum. Her reaction was more damning than Plum's words. Her face dropped. A flash of panic and disapproval washed over her as she realized what Plum had just done. She forced a tense, awkward laugh and tried to smooth it over, saying Plum was just trying to make the situation light, but it was too late. The grenade had been thrown, and everyone in the room and everyone watching at home knew it was intentional. Sabrina's desperate attempt to do damage control was an admission that there was, in fact, damage to control. Plum hadn't just made a comment, she had exposed a deep, ugly rift within the league and declared war on its biggest star.
By the way, this is the least profitable, arguably, it'll be over the next 10 years. It's only going to get more profitable as women's basketball gets better, as the Caitlin Clark momentum train gets bigger. I mean, this year, she's not playing well, she's hurt, she's not there for all the games, so this is actually not as great as it could be. Like Michael Jordan, hurt year 2, next 12 years were legendary. That's what it's going to be. So I think they deserve a big raise, maybe not 50% of revenues, because NBA stars, there's a lot of them, and they move the needle. The WNBA stars...
The fallout was immediate and came from the highest levels of the sports commentariat. It wasn't just fans on Twitter who were outraged. It was NBA royalty. Stacey King, a core member of the 90s Chicago Bulls dynasty and a 3-time champion alongside Michael Jordan, went on his show and absolutely incinerated Plum. King, now a respected broadcaster, understood both championship chemistry and the business of basketball, and he was appalled. He laid out the hypocrisy with brutal clarity, asking, as you're fighting for better salaries, you're portraying a united front at your biggest event. You still find a way to throw shade at Caitlin Clark. Why? He didn't stop there. He diagnosed the problem perfectly. Some of these girls are really petty, and someone needs to explain to them it's hurting their league, and it's sad to see. When a hardened NBA champion who dealt with the egos of a dynasty tells you your behavior is petty and bad for business, your argument is dead on arrival. King articulated what millions were thinking. This wasn't just poor sportsmanship, it was a monumentally stupid business.
Now you're at the Ritz-Carlton. Keep your issues to yourself. All right? You went from a Motel 6 in a sketchy part of town to a 4 Seasons in the shopping district. Stop talking. I don't mind the t-shirts. I think you have leverage. I think you deserve more than 9%. But it's just misstep after misstep. It's time to grow up, girls. Like fast. Like this is the player that got you off.
Just when the fire from her comments began to rage, Kelsey Plum poured a gallon of gasoline on it with a move of such breathtaking foolishness, it defied belief. In the world of professional athletics, your sponsorship is your lifeblood. Brands pay millions for your loyalty and endorsement. Plum's primary sponsor is Under Armour, yet just days after her petty press conference performance, what appeared on her Instagram feed? Pictures of her smiling and laughing at a lavish exclusive party, an event hosted by Nike. Yes, Nike, the global juggernaut and Under Armour's mortal enemy in the sportswear wars. And more importantly, Nike, the brand that had invested a fortune in making Caitlin Clark the face of their women's basketball division. The hypocrisy was almost poetic. She had just tried to shame defame Clark for not being a team player, and here she was, giving free promotion to her own sponsor's biggest competitor, and by extension, to Clark's personal brand. Caitlin Clark had been silent through the initial drama. She could have released a statement, gone on a podcast, or engaged in a messy back and forth. Instead, she waited. She watched Plum make one mistake, and then another. And then, with the cold, calculated precision of a surgeon, she struck. She didn't stoop to Plum's level of cattiness. She didn't get angry. She simply went to Plum's Instagram post, the one from the Nike party, and dropped a comment that would echo across the entire sports world. 5 simple words. Thanks for the Nike ad. It was a digital nuclear bomb disguised as a thank you note. In that single, polite sentence, she accomplished everything. She exposed Plum's hypocrisy. She acknowledged the shade from the press conference without ever mentioning it. She asserted her own power and brand awareness. And she did it all while maintaining the high ground, looking completely unbothered and in control. It was a masterclass in modern media warfare, a devastating takedown achieved with terrifying efficiency. The internet went into an absolute meltdown. Clark's comment became the shot heard round the world. It racked up thousands of likes per hour as screenshots flew across Twitter, Instagram, and TikTok. Plum's comment section transformed into a digital battlefield. Fans were either howling with laughter at the sheer savagery of Clark's comeback or desperately trying to defend Plum's actions. But the most telling response of all came from Kelsey Plum herself. Nothing. Complete and total silence. There was no witty clapback, no angry retort, no justification. She couldn't say a word because she had been so thoroughly and publicly checkmated. What could she possibly say? Sorry I got caught being a hypocrite while promoting my rival's brand right after I tried to publicly shame their star athlete. Her silence was an admission of guilt, a white flag waved in the face of a humiliating defeat. She later tried a weak subliminal jab on her story about CC clamps, but it was too little, too late. The damage was done, and she looked like a sore loser trying to throw a punch after being knocked out cold. In the end, this explosive saga was far more than a petty feud between two athletes. It was a microcosm of the identity crisis facing the WNBA at its most critical moment. The league stands on the precipice of a golden era, with a superstar capable of carrying it to unprecedented heights of popularity and profitability. Yet this incident revealed a deep-seated internal conflict that threatens to sabotage that very future. The "pay us what you owe us" campaign, undermined by this public infighting, now looks less like a powerful stand and more like a dysfunctional family squabbling over an inheritance they haven't earned yet. Kelsey Plum wanted to put a rookie in her place, but instead, she exposed herself, embarrassed her league, and got outplayed by someone who understands the modern game, both on and off the court, far better than she does. It raises the